All right, let's get to our tip for new teachers of the podcast. And it kind of relates to what we've been talking about, teaching students with autism. I call it reverse the label. Reverse the label. And I think if you go back and listen to this podcast, I've been failing to do that, and I'll tell you in a minute. When we're dealing with students with different difficulties, different learning disabilities, a lot of times we call them by the disability first. We call them by their label first. We call them EL students or autistic students or resource students, or we give them the label first. And I think we need to reverse the label. Reverse the label. We, instead of calling them autistic students or resource students or EL students, or at-risk students, let's call them students who are at risk, students who are autistic, students who are EL, students who are resource. Let's reverse the label. Why? Because what's most important and what we need to focus on is not what label they carry, what their disability is. We need to focus on the fact that they are students. They are students with the same goals, the same hopes, the same desires as any other student, just that they have this obstacle that seems to prevent them from reaching those goals. But if we as teachers can focus on the student before we focus on the label, I think it's some kind of subconscious psychological effect it's going to have on us, and we're going to see them more than just through the label. We're going to see them as a student, and we're going to reach them as if they were an ordinary student. And we can't ignore the label. We can't say that the label doesn't exist, because it exists. And our teaching style, our teaching strategies, our teaching techniques need to be determined or influenced by the label. If we want to reach them, we got to reach them in a certain way, in a certain technique, or with a certain strategy. We're going to reach them, but first we're going to focus on the fact that they are students first. They are students first. They're children first who have a label that's been placed on them. And I think the first step in giving these students a chance is to reverse the label. Don't call them by their label. Call them students with the disability, students with the challenge. And it's a psychological effect it's going to have on you. And I think we can start a trend. Every time I hear teachers, they say, so how are your EL students doing? Or how are your RSP students doing? Or how are your at-risk students? Even we have those titles on top of our documents. And I think we got to stop that. We got to change that to students who are at risk, students who are resource, students who are autistic, students who are ELs. Let's reverse the label. And I think we can have more success in the classroom if we start doing that. Again, this is Sam from successintheclassroom.com, wishing you lots of success in the classroom. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.